Another addition in the transfer portal for Florida State, this time in the form of a defensive back coming from the Alabama Crimson Tide. Earl Little Jr. is now a Florida State Seminole, and joining me to discuss that is Warchant.com senior recruiting reporter and, transfer portal reporter as well. His name is Michael Langston. My name is Tom Lang. Hit the like button underneath the video. Michael, this has been a couple of years in the making. Maybe not exactly like Marvin Jones Jr., but this is a class of 2022 prospect that Florida State was in on all the way before Alabama secured his signature.
Right.
Take us through the journey of Florida State and Earl Little Jr. now that he's finally a Nole.
Yeah, it's almost full circle type of thing. Certainly, FSU recruited him, pretty heavily in high school. I think the talk in high school was like, is he going to go to, Miami where his dad played? But FSU certainly made a big impact. I think they were one of his top schools, top two or three, and at that time, the product wasn't there to match what either what the relationships were. So I think that was a big deal as far as in the recruitment. And then now you circle full circle, like I said, and the products there for FSU. You know, pretty much 13-0 season with all their guys. And finished 13-1 ACC champions, and the product is there. We see the development with not just defensive line players, but also in the secondary with a guy he knows pretty well in Patrick Surtain, who was his high school coach. So he knows, there's a lot of ties there, and he's also close with Marvis Jones Jr. So this is the one that I was waiting for him to pop in there, similar to how I felt about Marvin. That I felt like if he pops in there, if I see that name pop up there, it's going to look pretty good and it's going to go pretty fast, and certainly it did. With Earl jumping on board pretty quickly, so I think it's certainly a major addition. This is a guy that to me is from what I can tell is in the two deep for Alabama. Play seems to be playing. Certainly got playing time, so I think a guy that's certainly a terrific ad that can play the star position, which is basically a mixture of safety and corner. So I think he does a lot of different things, and certainly a guy that I know, the FSU staff is elated about.
Yeah, Michael, I mean, his position coach now being his high school coach knows exactly, and his defensive back coach as well, and Coach Tan, but he's going to know where to place Earl Little in terms of fitting the pieces of the puzzle together in 2024. But I was going to ask you about that. So his background in high school, obviously his training in Alabama behind the scenes, some of that is on the field, but a lot of that is behind the scenes his first couple of years. You think he translates for Florida State somewhere closer to the middle of the field as either a slot corner or a safety?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of a mixture that he can play both. I think he certainly, has the hips to play corner, and he certainly has the tracking ability to play that position as well. But I think he's also really good instincts when in the middle of the field when you put him out there, and I mean, he can read the play and dissect it and be very impactful as far as impact plays in the passing game, and isn't afraid to come up there if you need to, to make the hit and do a lot of different things. And a guy that certainly after they lost on the KJ Bolden thing, you needed somebody in there that's going to help you make an impact. I think Earl Little Jr. is certainly a massive addition for FSU.
Yeah, so this is a player, Michael. I mean, he wasn't like Marvin Jones in terms of top of the list in the 2022 class, but he was the number 5 overall corner according to On3. So this isn't like some projection or long-term project player that Alabama brought in and wanted to work with. This is a highly touted player out of high school. Do you think it's just a matter of Alabama having the spoils of what they usually do at that university, and that's why he was squeezed out? Or do you think it maybe Earl left because there was a desire to come to Florida State because they proved they could win and his high school coach was there? Like, why do you think, from what you've heard and some of the background stories that you might have caught wind of, why do you think Earl entered the portal and why did he choose Florida State so quickly?
I think it's a mixture of stuff, more so the latter, what you talked about, that seeing what FSU's product is, having one of his closest friends in Marvin Jones Jr. there, seeing what FSU's doing, Coach Sertain's there. I mean, it's
Sure,
just
sure.
when
Yeah.
you have everything, it's kind of he believes in what they're doing. He certainly loves what they do with development at defensive back, and I've said this a few times of guys they've gotten is this is a product of what what they look like on the field, and
Mhm.
what their development's looking like, and just what the performance is when we're on the field. I think kids are, yeah, these two kids, and Marvin Jones Jr. and Earl Little, they were going to come to FSU when that product was what it was, and it tells you how far they've come. And I think that's a big factor in this recruitment was where they're going and what they're doing. Certainly, he wants to be a part of that. I think in Alabama, I'm sure there were times where he could have been a starter or something like that, or a co-starter or higher up. But I think when you want to get comfortable with people you're around and the system you're around, and maybe with FSU, he just felt like, you know what, this is a little bit better. And I had heard for a while that, you know people around Alabama, that they thought like there would be a good portion of guys hitting the portal. He was kind of one of them that I'd heard. So I think it's kind of a mixture, because this isn't a kid that was buried in the depth chart. It's a kid that was in, like I said, they're two deep, two or three deep, and I think even Saban, before they were playing in their game against Michigan, said that he would be battling for the star position on that game for the national semifinals. So it does speak to the level of the trust that they have with him. So this wasn't a guy that was just totally buried in there. I think is a guy that certainly you can count on, and you're productive, but you might look at a situation like with Jermaine Johnson when he was at Georgia. He was playing, but maybe go to a place where you're the guy, and I think FSU, he can do that.
So in this day and age, Michael, of the transfer portal and NIL being part of it, but really I'm talking the transfer portal now. How important is it as a coaching staff that if you don't get the yes on signing day for a prep kid, to make sure that no bridges are burned, because they could be coming back your way? We've got a trend now with two of the top players that Florida State has brought in so far in the portal. Two of the first three that they brought in
Right.
have been relationships that maybe didn't end the way they wanted it to on signing day, but a couple of years it comes around. It's got to be critical to make sure you don't burn any bridges.
Oh, it is. It's huge, and yeah, that's what, when I talk to them just generically, when we have our media lunches, the FSU staff would tell me that, like, whether they choose FSU or not, we want to make sure they know exactly what we are and what the relationship is. So it's a place that you never know when it's going to come full circle, or you're going to have a chance that they'll play there. Now, a guy like KJ Bolton, I'm pretty confident that that's likely not going to be one that they recircle again, based on how that went down. So it goes both ways with how you treat people. So you need, whether it's the recruit or the coach or the staff of the school, got to make sure that you protect yourself, because you never know how situations work out, where a coach leaves, or you're not happy, or just something in general. So I think it's vital, and I think it's vital to FSU when they do it. I think a perfect example, just or a good example of just that, was this staff encourages like kids to take visits when they're considering FSU. I think the kid today with that visited offensive lineman, they're like, "Hey, we want you to go take a visit because we feel confident in our product." So it's about, one, confidence in your product, but also not feeling where you feeling like you have something special and unique at your school. So go ahead and see those other places. So, but overall, back to the original point was, I think it's a big deal to not burn any bridges, not feel like, hey, you know what, we lost on that one. Screw that guy. We're never gonna, whatever. Because you never. I mean, now in the day of transfer portal, you could see that guy in a year or two. So, you might be back in the fold for you. So I think it's very important. It's not just this one. There's guys like Terrence Ferguson, a top offensive lineman in Alabama. Alex Atkins has a really good connection with him. There's other guys like, running back Judkins that just entered the portal, or will enter the portal for Mississippi, or just countless guys that you always want to keep that relationship, because that's what those kids remember. A lot of the portal stuff is relationships or previous trust of what place will be the best for you. So I think it's a big deal anytime, whether you get the kid or not, to make sure they remember you.
And clearly, Earl Little Jr., Marvin Jones Jr., both remembered Florida State. And remember Warchant.com, Warchant TV, for all the latest coverage on the transfer portal. Michael Langston named a couple of extra names that might be entering, have entered the portal, have connections to Florida State from their prep days. Could they do it again this cycle? Could Florida State make it another who might have said no on signing day who say yes to the Noles eventually. Find out more on warchant.com. Michael Langston's coverage on the Premium Recruiting Board. Hit the like button underneath this video and subscribe to Warchant TV. It is absolutely free for right now. Thanks, Michael. Florida State has a new player in the fold, defensive back Earl Little Jr. We'll talk to you next time here on Warchant TV.